thank you all for tuning in to another edition of Outside the Shop with me, your host, Daryl D. Lane. As always, where I get to talk about everything that I normally don't get to talk about on my regular sports podcast, Barbershop Sports Talk, which you guys can all find on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, the whole deal there. Also, and by the way, thank you everybody who's tuning in via Facebook Live, Twitter/Periscope, and YouTube live stream. I appreciate you guys. And share this podcast. Wherever you're listening right now, share this. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just type in Daryl Lane. You'll find the YouTube channel. And below on the link in the description, I posted an article I did a while back on my top offensive tackles in this upcoming 2021 NFL draft. So if your team needs an offensive tackle, the Alex Leatherwoods from Alabama, the Rashawn Slaters from Northwestern, the Penny Sewells, who's I believe he's my second overall player in the draft overall. So if you want to learn about the offensive tackles, check out that article. It's down below. Got a lot of great stuff to talk about today. Something I do want to hit on. I was really thinking about this hard and long about the Deshaun Watson story, some insight into that. Roger Goodell, the NFL will expect to have full fans in attendance for all the games. It's really interesting in the COVID world we live in now. Steve Nash talking about the Brooklyn Nets. And LeBron James recruiting Steph Curry. That's a little interesting. So first, let's start with this Deshaun Watson. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about this long and hard. And what the conclusion I came to is this. Whether you think that there was sexual assault, sexual misconduct going on with all these different women, isn't it kind of weird that this all happened like as soon as all this controversy is going on with Deshaun? Isn't that kind of weird? Like, we all think Deshaun is a model citizen before all this. Deshaun, he never had any issues to my knowledge. I don't know if anybody, people can comment, was upset with what was going on in the Texans organization. He wanted out, and Houston didn't want to trade him. They desperately wanted to keep him, right? Nick Caserio, John Carroll alum, by the way, said, we're not trading the player. Number 4 is off limits. They were hanging up with teams. Houston was not being cooperative at all. And then all of a sudden, there's a woman that comes forward and has allegations of sexual assault. Then more come forward. So I just want to know, like, why now? And I think sometimes these things aren't just coincidence. And I just want to say this really quickly. People know things. Like, people plead the fifth. People plead ignorance. People plead stupidity. People know things. People remember when the Penn State sexual assault, what was going on with the children, right? Awful situation with, I'm forgetting the defensive coordinator's name, but that was going on. Joe Paterno covered it up. People knew about it. People see things over 20 years, over a time frame. When you're around, people notice things. Even the Houston Texans organization, how long has Deshaun Watson been in the NFL? For about 4 or 5 years. People notice things. People hear things. People talk. People gossip. Like, people gossip. Like, oh, yeah, he talks about women. I heard something that he does this. There's things that, that get said about a couple athletes, maybe in the Cleveland area that I've heard, that I'm not going to mention their names, but maybe that they did some stuff. So, like, there's a lot of things when people have interactions with you and you hear from first, second, third-hand information, how things kind of swirl around. It's not always completely true. Sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes it's a lie. But what I will say is, people talk. People know things. People have hints. And I will tell you this. In the NFL, you know what they do? They hire private investigators to look at these players before the draft. That's what they do in the NFL. They hire private investigators. You know what else they do? They will pay people to watch these players, like when they go out, to make sure they don't get into trouble. That's the length these teams will go. These are billion-dollar industries. You don't think if the two Houston Texans, they want to find out something about Deshaun and see what's going on in his personal life, that they couldn't have done that? Like, really? Come on now. Let's not plead ignorance. When you really want to know something, particularly this day and age, when you really want to know something, you have the resources, you have the money, you're typically able to find out what you want to know. It's just that simple. So I think maybe the fix was in on Deshaun. Now, it's wrong. Obviously, it looks like he was doing some creepy stuff anyway. But, like when it comes to Deshaun, I think maybe the fix was in, and maybe this was a lot more planned than we think. I don't think this is coincidence, the way this is all turning out. So next up, for the 2021 NFL season, it looks like there will be full fans in attendance. That's great for all of you guys. for all the people who love watching NFL football, who love drinking at the game, taking their kids there, taking their significant others there and watching some football, who love tailgating. Jerry Jones has mentioned this a lot. We got to keep this money thing rolling. We got to keep it rolling. So I think that's really good for the NFL that they're going to be able to have fans. And particularly I know, right, as a Bills fan, you would have loved to have a home playoff game in New Era Field and Orchard Park as a Bills fan. I would have loved that. I would have loved that. A lot of these teams, they would have loved that. The Kansas City Chiefs fans, Kansas City, they were almost having, I believe, a full crowd anyway or close to it. But teams like that. So I think, particularly especially the Bills had, right? So I think it's really good for the fans that they're going to be doing that. And hopefully we can get this COVID stuff behind us, because I think that's kind of symbolized that things are getting more closer to normal. Because it's like last year when this whole COVID stuff started to happen, like I was wondering if we'd ever be able to leave our house, if there was going to be martial law. What was going on? Right. So now that we're kind of out of the woods, we have sports back. That's really cool. Justin Fields, he ran a 4.44 40-yard dash. That's kind of freakish. And he's about 240 pounds, thick, strong. Justin Fields is a freak of nature. And the San Francisco 49ers just traded up to number 3. I know people, some people said Mac Jones. Some people said Trey Lance. Look out for Justin Fields. People have compared him to guys like Cam Newton physically. I think he has a little bit of Colin Kaepernick in his game. Coincidentally, he played for the San Francisco 49ers. Kyle Shanahan, he coached Robert Griffin III at one point in time in Washington. So maybe a freak athlete like Justin Fields, he can add a new dimension that Shanahan hasn't had in a while, because he's coached the Matt Ryans in Atlanta when he was the OC. He's also coached, obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo's and those guys, but somebody who can really make plays when it breaks down. High pedigree for Justin Fields. I think that would work really well. Now, in terms of the NBA, the Nets obviously just signed Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge, and Steve Nash said something interesting. I don't know what and this I want to read the quote. He said, "I don't know what we're supposed to do, not try to add to our roster and just sit pat." He said, the idea that of this league is try to put together the best team you can put together. And that doesn't guarantee you anything. It's not like what we did is illegal. And I think that's something people don't think about enough. Particularly when the Warriors thing happened, people criticized it. The whole goal of this is to build a team. And I don't understand why people are being mad anyway. Like, Blake Griffin was past his prime in Detroit, and LaMarcus Aldridge was a bum in San Antonio. Forgive me, he wasn't a bum. He's better than that. But you guys get what I'm saying. He wasn't very good, and they basically just said, stay home. And they both signed with them. Like, Blake Griffin's not a star anymore. He's like the 6th best option. When you're the 6th best option, you have freaking Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and then when Kevin Durant comes back, and that's drawing all the attention, you're going to look good. You're going to look good, right? I think that's more of it than they're building like this monstrosity that we've never seen. I'll tell you this. You want to know, there's been big threes. Like KD, Kyrie, Harden, that's a big 3. You want to know other big 3s there were? Freaking look at Golden State. They had KD, Steph, and Clay. That's basically the same as what Brooklyn has, except they had Draymond as their 4th guy. You look at the Miami Heat, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. You want to look at the Kobe Shaq Lakers, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, 2 of the top 3 players in the league, along with Tim Duncan at the time. You want to look at the Showtime Lakers, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy. Like, this has been going on for years. I don't understand. The San Antonio Spurs, Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili. Like, these big 3s have been happening for a while. Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen. Like, so, and even they have Rondo. My God, Rondo's going to be a freaking Hall of Famer. So I don't understand the criticism. I think Steve Nash is right. What the hell are they supposed to do? And lastly, apparently Brian Windhorst reported on his podcast, The Hoop Collective, that LeBron James was recruiting Steph Curry at the All-Star break. And I want people to mention this in the comments. Have we ever seen an athlete who is more likely to schmooze, kiss butt than LeBron James and say, hey, buddy, come to my team? He was doing it with Giannis a couple years ago when he got Giannis to be on his team. People thought, oh, he's recruiting Giannis. Giannis is the Lakers. Is LeBron just the biggest recruiter ever? He was talking to Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. Then he's like, hey, how about Kyrie, Kevin Love? Then he's like, oh, hey, let's go to LA. Then he's like, oh, hey, Anthony Davis. LeBron James is a mastermind, man. He is one step ahead. Him and Steph Curry, there's a time when he was like, Steph Curry's not on my level. He's screaming at Steph Curry's face at the NBA Finals. And I was like, oh, you know what? Let's have Steph. Let's have the greatest shooter ever. That would be great. Less ball handling responsibilities for me. Maybe I can play point guard. He can play shooting guard. It'll be really fun. We can be like the Globetrotters. Super great. The best passer and the best shooter in basketball. Who wouldn't love that? Then you have Anthony Davis, the best defensive player in the basketball. Let's just have the freaking greatest show on earth. Obviously, I do not think this will happen. I think also this will be bad for the NBA if this happened, because Steph Curry is one of the last players that I think that we all think is going to retire with this team. I think there's value in having the Kobe Bryants, the Dirk Nowitzkis, the Tim Duncans, guys that retire with their team. I wish guys like Paul Pierce, guys like Dwayne Wade would have done that. I think there's value to it, and I think it's really important. Like Michael Jordan, did it help Michael Jordan's career that he ended his career with the Washington Wizards? No. Like, the Magic Johnsons. Like, I think it's really good and special to finish with one team, and I think that's what Steph Curry should do, particularly given the fact that he's already won in Golden State. They're trying to build a team around him. They're going to have a high draft pick this year, I believe, because of the Minnesota pick, and Minnesota's been goddamn awful. So, then Clay's going to come back, so no reason for Steph Curry to leave at all. And that's all we have for this edition of Outside the Shop. Share this with which on ever platform you are listening to right now. That'd be greatly appreciated. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just type in Daryl Lane and you will find the YouTube channel. And if you have not checked out my top 14 offensive tackles in this coming 2021 NFL draft, click on the link below. That will be on the descriptions. If you want to learn about some of the offensive tackles, maybe your team needs an offensive tackle. And maybe if you know a friend whose team needs an offensive tackle, share that article with them as well. Have a great day, everybody, and God bless. And by the way, go Zags. My Final Four is almost complete. I'm killing both my brackets, JCU Buds with all the people from John Carroll, and the Barbershop Group, which is a bunch of people collectively who have been on the podcast. And I'm winning both groups right now. So happy to that. And the Zags just won. And Houston was in my Final Four, complete. Zags are in my Final Four, complete. Michigan. So, like we're doing well. We are cleaning up and we are rolling this gravy train. So I'm very excited. Have a great day.